Hey there, Dave Allred, the Real Barman here from barpatrol.net and therealbarman.com. So in the last episode, we discussed 7 places where you could buy your restaurant equipment. And I felt the need to follow up with today's episode because one of the most asked questions I get is, should I actually buy my restaurant equipment or is it better to lease or rent it? Which is what we're going to discuss today. And like a lot of things, this comes down to what your situation is and what your preferences are, which is an answer I actually always hate when I'm asking for advice. I'm like, should I get the Nespresso BM2X8 or the Keurig Duo XL12? I don't know, whatever. And they're like, this really depends on your preferences. And I'm like, just please tell me what to do. So in this episode, I'm going to give you the pros and cons of buying versus leasing, but then I'm also going to go over the 5 most common pieces of restaurant equipment in restaurants, and I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you whether you should rent or lease or buy each one of these pieces of equipment. And this is not only my verdict, but this is also the verdict of other owners and managers I hear from who have a lot of experience with this. So first, the pros of renting or leasing restaurant equipment. Number 1, it's going to save you money up front. All right, you're not going to have to dish out a large investment, which means you can use that money to put toward other things. Number 2, repairs are included. And this is huge because if you are buying equipment and you're forking out a big old chunk of money to buy it, and then it breaks down and you have to fork out another big chunk of money, there's nothing worse than that. Number 3, you get it new or relatively new. All right, more often than not, when owners are looking to purchase restaurant equipment, they're looking for a bargain, which means they're buying secondhand equipment, which can be a disaster if you don't know what you're doing. Number 4, in some situations, you can actually use leased equipment as a tax deduction instead of paying the sales tax when you purchase the equipment. It's like a double whammy. Number 5, with supply chain and delivery issues these days, having an outside company, relying on these outside companies to deliver parts for your owned equipment can prove very difficult. If you rent or lease it though, it's all taken care of for you. And then number 6 for the pros is like a secret bonus for leasing equipment. Some food vendors will actually lease equipment to you for free if you agree to allow them to be your vendor. All right, so think about that. And then the cons of leasing, I have 3 of them. Number 1, just like leasing a car, you end up paying for something that you don't own, so you have no equity in that piece of equipment. Number 2, if you break it or you're responsible for its downfall, all right, you could be responsible for paying for it and then be left with nothing. And then number 3, with leased equipment, there's sometimes a lengthy contract. And if you want out early at any time, you can incur a healthy termination fee. So I'm not going to go over the pros and cons of buying because it's practically the exact opposite. If you have the money to buy, it's great because it saves you money in the long run, but you are responsible for the repairs and getting the parts in, which can be a headache, and so on and so forth. So instead, let's get to the main event and play a game I like to call Buy It or Lease It. That's my game show voice. I know, it's really good. Anyway, I'm going to choose 5 specific pieces of restaurant equipment. I'm going to tell you whether you should buy or lease it. When it comes down to it in the end, you do have to decide what's best for you. That answer that I hate, but it's true because I don't reside in your shoes. Okay, so let's get to it. First up is ice machines. Now, for whatever reason, ice machines are less reliable than your local weather person who can't predict rain or sunshine correctly in the next 45 minutes. Now, ice machines aren't extremely expensive if you do want to buy them at like $2,000 to $4,000, but considering how often they could break down, you could easily get your money back by leasing, and it's going to be less of a headache. So ice machines, lease or buy it, lease it. Next up, freezers. Okay, so freezers have a bit of a larger tag than ice machines, like $8,000 to $10,000, so automatically you would think lease. But the truth is that freezers have excellent warranty plans, and leasing freezers can be anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,500 per month, so you're going to spend the same amount of money in less than a year than you would if you purchased it. Okay, so freezers, lease it or buy it. If you can afford it, buy it. Next up is gas stoves and ranges, and this one's a no-brainer. Unlike ice machines, stoves and ranges were built like the Terminator. They're built to last. You can even buy a used stove with confidence as long as it's not a lemon. Okay, we're looking at anywhere from like $2,000 to $10,000. There's quite a range there. Depends on what you need, but the life expectancy of these are great. So when it comes down to it, buy it or lease it. If you can afford it, buy it. Next up is dishwashers. All right, this is another easy one. Dishwashers require a lot of chemicals and maintenance and the constant need for new parts, it seems. The money that you're ended up saving in the long run for purchasing it ends up getting eaten up by maintenance and repair costs. This one's an easy one. Lease it or buy it. Lease it. And the last one we're going to do, number 5, is coffee makers and espresso machines. Now, because coffee makers and espresso machines aren't as expensive as other restaurant equipment, you might think that the logical option here is to buy. But if you were on a game show right now, you would have a bucket of slime dumped on your head for being wrong. I'm sorry, but it's true. All right, coffee makers and machines in general have a very short lifespan and a very short warranty. Plus, this is one of those machines that you can possibly get for free from the vendor if you agree to sign a contract to get all of your coffee and your tea and your filter from them. So now that means you're just paying for the coffee and the tea and the filters that you need anyway, and you get a machine for free and the repairs that go along with it. So buy it or lease it? Lease it. Okay, that's going to do it for the day. Thanks for playing along. I hope that helps you some decide whether you should buy or lease certain pieces of equipment. If you have any of your own experiences or feedback with this, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I do appreciate you being here. I'm going to see you next time. Have a great day. I'm out.